These are both sleeping.
Up. Mouch.
We have a very busy day of things planned, mostly outside with planting and setting up stuff for the garden. So this morning I'm actually getting some broth going because I'm going to be making a stew later on for dinner. I'm also going to feed my starter because with the stew I'm going to be making some sourdough cornbread. Well, it'd be after our pool shots. Original church. We'll look it up and see exactly what it's called. It's finally time to plant the herb garden, the vegetable garden, all of the flowers, all of the things. I looked at the weather, and in the entire 10-day forecast, there is no chance of frost, and we are well into May here, and so I think that it is safe to say that we are past the frost now in the Midwest, and probably most places you never know for sure, but I'm taking a chance here and I'm going to go ahead and start getting a lot of things in the ground. And one of the first things I'm doing here is planting our herbs. We have a little herb garden in our sunroom, which is so convenient because the sunroom is right off of the kitchen. And so it is a great place for the herbs to be, so they're easily accessible when cooking all spring and summer long. I want to thank Array for sponsoring today's video. If you guys have been around my channel, you know that I love making homemade from scratch meals for my family, and I really do strive to keep us on a healthy diet, but just like everyone else, we love to go out to eat, have the occasional ice cream, and recently we were on vacation, and so there's lots of times when we're eating things that are not the perfect diet. I really love to go by that 80-20 rule, where when we're home, we're eating all organic, healthy, from scratch meals with fermented foods, but then not having to worry about it the other 20% of the time. I love having that food freedom and being able to indulge when we want to. Going from a healthy diet and then indulging can sometimes cause an upset stomach or bloat, and that is why I absolutely love Array. Array Bloat uses digestive enzymes to break down gluten and lactose. It is made with all natural ingredients like ginger root, bromelain, lemon balm, dandelion root, peppermint, and slippery elm. It is so easy to use and it works so quickly. You take 2 to 3 capsules immediately following a meal, and it can help you to feel your best. You can move on with your normal activities. We recently went on vacation, even though we did do a lot of the cooking in our condo, and still had some healthier meals, mainly because that's just easier, all the kids. We did go out for seafood and we went out for ice cream. And I was so glad to have Array Bloat so that we could take it, so none of those symptoms could slow us down on our vacation. Right now, Array is offering 15% off your first order plus 4 free travel sachets if you go to my link in my description box below. And if you use my code SHOPYT-OUR-OILY-HOUSE. This year, for the first time, we are building a couple of garden beds. Now, we are planning on moving at some point. I've told you guys that we bought property and we're going to be building, but since that is in the plans for somewhat near future, I wanted to make these garden beds where they would be easily to transport whenever we move. So we are just putting these boards in between these bricks. We found all of this at Lowe's, and it was very inexpensive and a very easy, quick way to make a couple of raised beds. Now, on our property where we live, it is very hilly, rocky, clayey, all the bad things for a garden. And so I thought this year we would try a couple of raised beds. Now I'm just doing 2 and not making them, very big, and trying not to plant too many things, as I know in just a couple of weeks we're going to be getting very close to having a baby, and I'm trying to be realistic with myself. And so we are just doing a small vegetable garden this year, and we got most of the dirt from our farm, and that's why I'm picking out a lot of things that I don't want in my garden, but the dirt is nice and rich, so I think it's going to be some great dirt for our garden. It rained right after my husband went and picked up the dirt. That's why it is so muddy. And so I'm not going to plant the garden today. I'm going to let it air out, dry out with the sun the rest of today and tomorrow, and then I will get back to that tomorrow. I'm always much more excited about all of the flowers and hanging baskets and things than I am about the vegetables, whereas my daughter really is into the vegetable garden this year. So we're doing a little bit of both, but something about the pretty flowers blooming and being able to make pretty flower arrangements excites me way more than the vegetables. Now, obviously, we need the vegetables because we have a large family to feed, and all of that is great, but I don't know, in this stage of life, the flowers are my priority. Probably shouldn't be, but it just is. Now, we also got a load of topsoil, dirt, and mulch from somewhere local to put on top of the rest of the dirt, again, just to make it more rich and hopefully make it to where everything will grow a little bit better in these raised beds. While my husband finishes up outside, I am coming in to get some stew going. Now, it's warmer outside and definitely not stew season, but I've mentioned it here before. We continue to consume meals with broth all summer, spring, just all year long, even when it's warm, just because I know that broth is such a healthy, good thing to get into your diet. So it's a staple any time of year. And so on this particular day, even though it's nice and warm and, stew seems more of a winter meal, I'm making up a big pot of stew for dinner. So my broth is finished, so I'm getting my vegetables all cut up, and then I always like to sear my meat and vegetables before adding in the broth and the rest of the veggies, and that just really helps to lock in the flavor. So I'm going to get all of this meat and veggies in, and then I'm just going to let this simmer on the stove for a few hours until dinner time. I always make my broth in my Instant Pot. It's just the quickest, easiest way for me to make it. I do have the recipe on my blog, ouroilyhouse.com, and I have found if I follow that recipe exactly. I can always get the broth to gel up, and it's just super easy to do that way. So if you're looking for an easy, good broth recipe, you can go to my blog to find that. I had extra broth that did not fit into my Dutch oven for my stew, so I'm just straining the bones off, and I'll let this cool completely before transferring it to a mason jar, and then I will just store that in the refrigerator, and I'll use that broth throughout the week for different recipes. I always like to have broth in the refrigerator for making rice or soup or stew or just anything that I might need it for. For my cornbread, I'm just mixing together a cup of yellow cornmeal, a half a cup of all-purpose flour, a half a cup of sugar, half a cup of milk, 1/4 cup of melted butter, and then I'm adding in a cup of starter, a little bit of baking soda, baking powder, 1 egg, and a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm just going to mix all of this up and put it into a greased pan and bake it, and this will be ready to go later on whenever my stew is finished. This is actually the next day. It got a little late on us after finishing up the garden beds and doing some things outside. I never even got a final clip of dinner, but I am getting breakfast going this morning, and after that I'm going to get back outside, and the goal today is to get the vegetable garden planted. For breakfast, I'm just making some sourdough pancakes. This is one of our favorite things to make. I make this very, very often. I have this recipe on my blog, but it's very, very easy. It's just 2 cups of fed sourdough starter, 2 eggs, 1/4 of a cup of melted coconut oil, and then we add in a couple tablespoons of honey or maple syrup, just some type of sweetener. You can even do sugar, and a teaspoon of baking soda, and then just mix it up, and then I fry it in my cast iron skillets with a little bit of coconut oil. And now I do double this recipe, and I don't even have to follow it anymore because I know the consistency I'm looking for. But if you're looking for the recipe, you can find it on my blog at orlyhouse.com. Now, of course, with this, I'm also scrambling up some eggs just to stretch this meal a little bit further. I was getting ready to head outside to work on the garden. I realized that the dirt was still pretty wet, and it is really warm and sunny here today. So I'm going to do a few things inside this afternoon, and then I will plant later on this evening. So the first thing I'm doing is I realized my kids were out of toothpaste, and so I am just making up toothpaste for them. I've been making homemade toothpaste for probably about 10 years. Now, again, this recipe is on my blog at reallyhouse.com. It's very simple. It's just a mixture of coconut oil, baking soda, calcium carbonate, and then you can either do xylitol or salt depending on preference. Obviously, the salt does not sweeten it as much as the xylitol would, but I was out of that today, and so I'm doing this. My kids do not like any flavoring in their toothpaste. Anytime they use store-bought toothpaste, they do not like the taste of it because they don't like any flavor. So this is the kind they like. And then when I was putting the toothpaste away, I realized we were also out of hand soap in that main bathroom. So I'm mixing up some hand soap really quick. You guys can see just how easy it is to make some of these things. None of them require too many ingredients, and it's so nice to be able to make it your own, to save money and know exactly what you're putting on your skin and into your body. I find this so important, especially with kids, because you never know when they're going to put something in their mouth or swallow it or whatever. So I love using things that have really great natural ingredients. So for this hand soap, it's just 12 ounces of water, 1 ounce of vegetable glycerin. This really helps to thicken it. 2 ounces of Castile soap. And then I added in a few drops of lemon and lime essential oil, any oil you want to use, or you can even leave it plain. And I have tested the pH level on this, and because it is high enough, I don't have to use any type of preservative. I am switching out the art that goes in the frame above the little piece that I got at the end of our hallway. I absolutely love the way this little area turned out, and it adds so much character and beauty to the end of my hallway. I am so excited that it's finally time to plant our garden. It is warm, and this just makes me know that it's going to be warm, most likely to stay. So this year we are doing one of our beds with tomatoes and peppers and onions. I am obviously thinking about fresh salsa, pico de gallo, Mexican, all of those yummy things all summer long. And so we did 2 different types of tomatoes. We did a Roma tomato, then we did a bigger tomato. And then for the peppers, we did some jalapenos and red bell peppers and also some green peppers. And then we did a row of onions. Now, like I said, we are trying to keep it very manageable and not have too many things, just because I know right when everything starts popping up, I'm not going to be in the mood probably to preserve a ton of things. So I'm trying to plant the amount that we would actually just need for our family. Now, of course, my daughter got out here and was helping because she loves gardening. And this bed, we are doing a row of carrots, and we're doing some more onions in here, and then we're also doing some cucumbers. All of the kids absolutely love pickles, and so I wanted to make sure to do some cucumbers so we can make some pickles over the summer. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. I get out a new video every single week.